So hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 81 of Level Up, 60 minutes of live Q&A where your questions, chat and votes really do drive the show. A warm welcome, of course, to everybody who's joining us right now on LinkedIn. I can see you all piling in now, which is really great. And also, of course, over on YouTube, which is where we have a growing following. So do let us know your name and where you're joining from in the chat. That would be fantastic. We do love to hear from you and get everybody involved. Shanice Mitchell-Cox, I think, is the heading up our social team for today. So she's going to post a link into the chat sessions to vote up the questions that you would most like answered, and of course for you to add your own as well to the panel. We live stream Mondays at 8 and Fridays at 2 in the afternoon every week. Okay, in the UK it is, to both YouTube and LinkedIn. Now, today we're going to be talking about how to build a culture of agile change inside your organization, accepting, of course, that change is constant, incremental and increasingly fast-paced. So it's not always that straightforward or easy thing to achieve. Joining us today, though, we've got a really amazing panel, including some familiar faces and some new ones as well. So let's start at the top with Farah. Farah Heba is a product owner and trainer over at Aedger. She has a passion for knowledge sharing. I think it's fair to say she enjoys working right the way across project life cycles, from early conceptualization through to completion, and always keeps an eye on the details. So welcome back, Farah. Great to see you.
Thank you, Nick. I'm looking forward to answering the questions. That really seem great.
Okay, really excellent. Thank you. So Stephen Deneir is an experienced agile coach and mentor. He's based in Belgium and he works across industries with his clients. He's an author as well, who's written several books in a series entitled Back to the Foundations of Scrum, of the Scrum framework. And he dedicates himself to bringing the fundamentals of agile to life. So welcome to Level Up, Stephen. Lovely to see you.
Hello, Nick. Thanks for having me. I'm looking really forward to it.
Thank you so much. Samuel Jurawan is the Director of Change Managers and leader of the Change Managers Collective over at Criteo. Sam specialises in the commercial services sectors and has been helping businesses penetrate new markets, particularly in the Baltic region. So welcome to Level Up, Sam. Really great to have you on the show.
Thank you very much, Nick. It's a pleasure to be here with fellow panelists. I'm looking forward to all the exciting questions we're going to have. Let's have fun.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. A familiar face again is David McCreery. He's a practitioner, coach and mentor, of course, to project managers and their executive sponsors, with experience spanning financial services, government, utilities and healthcare. Lifelong learner. He has begun updating his knowledge around artificial intelligence and machine learning. So welcome back, David.
Great. Look, thank you very much, Nick. It's super to see everybody back. And it's a great topic with plenty of challenging questions, I suspect.
I think so too. One of our original panelists now completes our panel for today, Patrick von Schlag. You may remember from the single-digit episodes of Level Up. He's been with us right from the very beginning. He is, of course, the president over at the Deep Creek Center in the US, and he helps his clients adopt leading practice across a broad range of disciplines. Regular contributor to Level Up, so we're really grateful to have you back. Welcome, Patrick.
Thank you, Nick. It's really nice to be back with everybody. Looking forward to today's program.
Fantastic. All right. Well, very good. Well, we've got some amazing people already joining us online. We've got Diane and we've got Hadija from Uganda. We've got Danielle. We've got Tiffany. We've got a whole variety of different people. And I think Suchitra's jumped in as well from Bangalore over in India as well. So that's really great to see. Lovely. Completing our group for today, of course, is our question master, Charlotte Miller, and she is joining us from the UK. So welcome, Charlotte. Great to see you again. I'm sure we'll hear from Charlotte in a moment. Here she is.
Sorry, Participation from my dog there. I am, yes, good to be back. I'm thrown now completely. That's it. It's going to be a car crash from now on in.
Okay, all right. No, look, it's Friday afternoon. It's Friday afternoon. At least in the UK, it's Friday afternoon now. To be fair, Patrick is a little west of us on the globe, so he's got a little longer, all right, to wait for his weekend. But we've kind of got a bit of a party atmosphere already as we head into the end of July and the beginning of August. Summertime for many, and wintertime, of course, for actually almost the same number of people, I think. Anyway, let's move on. I think we should get on with it. Let's jump in and take our first question if we can, Charlotte.
Certainly can, Nick. We've got a question from John. As a change manager, I do not really find my place within agile teams. How can I ensure I'm not out of the picture and change is still considered as important?
All right. Well, Patrick, why don't you start us off, please? And then we'll hear from David.
So one thing I try to emphasize with my customers who are adopting Agile is not to think about Agile as a software approach, but as a services and enablement capability. That means thinking about people and roles and responsibilities, processes and practice capabilities, and engaging in winning buy-in from stakeholders for change. So as organizations need to become more adaptive, they do need to make changes to various types of applications and infrastructure and other components, but they need to be able to think about that holistically and the effect that has on people and on roles and on how organizations enable and win buy-in in hearts and minds. So the role that you play as an organizational change manager is more important than ever.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Patrick. David, and then Heba.
Yeah, I'm a little bit concerned about this question. The question is, how do I ensure that I'm not out of the picture? And I suppose that's my biggest concern about the question. I think as a change manager, you need to be able to provide the agile team with support, facilitation, and get them to understand, the ins and outs of change, not necessarily the agile aspect. So for me, it's not about being out of the picture, but it's making sure as a change manager or as a change agent, you're relevant to them and that you understand what they need or what the challenges that the agile team have and how you can support them. So maybe it's about flipping it upside down and taking it from a different picture.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Farah, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, I would say, first of all, maybe share your concerns with your team. That's never a good option to keep such kind of self. Then you can meet with your team and define together your path of action, I would say. If you're an experienced person in change, so let them know the importance of change management and what you can bring to the team and to customers. You can also learn how to adapt your practices and your way of working, as have been said by my colleagues. Do not expect all you usually do is 100% or will 100% fit with the new organization. So you'll need to negotiate, you'll need to flex, especially because in agile environments, changes will occur more frequently and it needs to be smooth for users. So I would summarize it in two main points. First is communicate with your team, let them know your concerns and try to figure out what you can bring to them and what they can bring to you. And second, try to figure out what needs to be adapted and flexible in your way of working.
Thanks so much. Some great advice there. Thank you, Farah. Sam, and then Stephen.
Yeah, so I think for me, as I work as a change manager as well, and I've worked with agile teams before, and I can see where you're kind of coming from with being left out of the picture, because in a lot of most agile frameworks, there's not a dedicated change manager spot within the team structure. So sometimes it's quite difficult for teams to kind of assess where you're going to be the one to play a role and provide benefit. I think for the best thing that you can do is just showcase the overall benefit that change has. Change is the thing that is going to be getting the realization and the ideas back out to that larger population, and then bringing the feedback that's so crucial to keep developing that new system, that new product, whatever it is, and making it better each and every single time. So you play a huge and important role within that process. And I think you just need to show the team that that's the benefit that you're going to bring.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much, Sam. And Stephen, final thoughts on this?
Yeah, the word that triggers me and the question is within the team. To me, the change manager is not part of a team itself. The change manager, need to support the team in going through the change and in setting an environment that the team can deal with the change. And that's a very important role. And once the team understands that, they'll figure it out. I'm convinced of that. They have skills enough to figure it out. So support the team, not as being part of it, but surrounding it with a lot of care.
Absolutely right. Thank you so much indeed, panel, and some really great advice there of what is I think a very common kind of question. How do you meet the kind of classical world of project managers and change managers and these kinds of roles with self-managing teams, and the way in which all of that kind of fits together? It's often an interface which relies on the how rather than the what quite so much. So really good question. Thank you so much, John, for the question, and some really brilliant answers, panel, as well. So Charlotte, on that note, I can see the questions are stacking up. So let's take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Liam. Most employees are experiencing change fatigue. What can I do to ensure success of an agile change initiatives in this environment?
Hey, Stephen, start us off with this, please.
I've heard that myself also a lot, change fatigue. But to me, the thing is, agility is about volunteering. So if you can set up a team around volunteering to support a change, some can back out for a while, so that their fatigue can be destroyed. And the people who say, yeah, this is really something for me, they can jump in. So not everybody at the same time needs to go through every single change. I think this volunteering approach really worked in a lot of situations for me.
Thank you so much. And Sam, your thoughts, and then David?
Yeah, I think change fatigue and is such a big thing that we're experiencing now, because again, companies want to adapt and they want to evolve and they want to stay ahead, of course. So how do you do that? You keep changing, you keep becoming better. And in order to deal with change fatigue, I think for employees who are experiencing changes delivered by agile teams, there's kind of two big methods that come to mind. If possible, there's a period of time where there's an equilibrium period, where there's a period of less change or a time to cement the changes that have already come into place. And if that's not possible, then I think building trust is the best thing. If your employees trust the strategic view of the company and they trust what changes are coming next, they'll be more likely to be absorbing and be actually able to deal with the constant pressure and change.
Okay, thank you very much, David, and then Farah.
Yeah, I think a really important thing to do is to try and involve the team in the change itself. So this kind of backs up Stephen's sort of point there as well. If we can get the team to design the change, identify the need for the change, they're going to be less fatigue orientated. I don't know what the word is there, but they're going to experience less fatigue because they feel that this is the change that they've participated in, that this is the change that their views on have been considered, and it's actually part of their change. And I think that's a really agile way of looking at things. Less top-down change and more people-centered change.
Thank you. And Farah?
To what has been said by my colleagues, I would say create a kind of communication highway. I mean, collect feedback from people, create a trusty environment, because change teams are here also to support stakeholders and not to make their life worse. What you can do also is kind of try to figure out what's the right frequency to avoid overwhelming them. Of course, agile and agility means short iterations, and that's good for delivery, but we're not obliged to push in production and to release all the changes at the same time. So finding the right rhythm, finding the right frequency for your people that works with you, for customers, employees, would be the best advice I can give.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. And Patrick, final thoughts?
Now, I just want to build on something David was talking about, which is creating buy-in and engagement with people throughout the change process. A lot of times change fatigue comes because people are surprised. They don't understand what's coming, when it's coming, and it always feels like they're having to react to things they don't have visibility into. And so when you create an environment where there's better transparency, you build better trust, and people are not surprised as changes continue to roll through. Their improved visibility will help you build more buy-in.
Okay, excellent. Thank you very much indeed, panel. A fantastically strong start to this episode. I think we're really kind of starting to, hit the nail on the head, and we've got a fantastic audience as well. Now, audience, you are our producers. It's entirely down to you, the kind of questions and the answers and the conversation that we have. It's unlike any other situation that you can think of on LinkedIn and on YouTube. You put the questions in and then we answer them. That's pretty much directly how it works. So if you've got a question in mind, don't be shy. Talk about your situation. Talk about the challenges, because not everything is like the LinkedIn world, all right, where everything goes splendidly. Just follow these things and it all works out all right. We've all had those situations where there's been little bumps in the road and we've had to rethink and regroup and reimagine how it was that we were going to do things. All right. So on that note, please just type your questions into the chat. Shanice and the team will pick them up and then we'll put them to the panel. Now then, Charlotte, if we can, let's move on. We'll take our next question.
Thanks, Nick. And on that note, Diane has submitted a live question via YouTube. Diane asks, what is a good organizational trait in a non-agile environment that can be challenged when building a culture of agile change?
All right. Well, while the panel are kind of giving that a little bit of thought, I would say one of the great traits of organizations that can sometimes be a challenge is where you've got a very spread out group of people where your communication lines are quite lengthy, all right, between individuals, because you need to really kind of step up the frequency of your comms as well as the consistency if you're going to bring that back into line. Patrick, why don't you start us off on this, please?
So most of my career, organizations were deeply focused in creating consistent, repeatable process. How do we carry out and produce and execute in a consistent way so that we can produce highly reliable and sustainable results? And there's certainly plenty of examples where that's exactly what you want. On the other hand, when organizations are dealing with complex problems, the standardized approach to solving them is probably not going to give you the results that you want. And so organizations that have invested heavily in creating highly structured, consistent approaches may struggle when they're trying to embrace agility and to try to understand how to build fast feedback loops, how to become more flexible and more self-organizing in enabling people to adapt and improve their capabilities.
Thank you very much indeed. Farah and then Sam.
Completely agree with what Patrick has just said. There is something else that just popped into my mind, which is governance. Governance is, for me, really challenging to translate into an agile, let's say, environment. Why? Because governance is good. You have committees, you have milestones, you have a lot of documents to fill in, a lot of people to go through to explain what you're going to do, what are the benefits, what would be your delivery target, etc. So in terms of structure, it's, let's say, a best practice. Now that you try to figure out how to translate this into agile, it might be a little challenging because you're in a fast-paced environment. You have less time to proceed with templates, to fill in documents, to go to see this person and to wait for the next milestone. So it might be a bit challenging for the team to figure out this, but it's a really, let's say, important topic to tackle, because agility does not mean we do everything and we bypass the different committees of milestones that we usually have.
Thank you very much indeed, Farah. Sam, and then Stephen.
Yeah, I think a lot of organizations have this effect where we start off long-term projects and we wait to get to the end to have benefits realization. And the brilliant thing about Agile is that you have benefits realization all the way through. And adopting something where you can have almost get have an MVP earlier on in the solution that people can test and they can play with, and I think that's a really good thing that you can embed within a non-agile environment in order to start seeing the benefits of agile. And then when you start to realize the benefits of it, it's almost difficult to even turn your head away from an agile change environment.
Okay, thank you very much. So I think that's really passionate. That it's really very well spoken, Sam. Thank you so much, Stephen, and then David.
Yeah, this question triggers me. I had clients that thought that everything needed to go through that agile way of working. It doesn't. To me, it doesn't. There are parts of the organization who are indeed working in a complex setting, and that part needs to move to the agile ways of working. The other part, who are in the more simple to complicated area, keep going with your traditional way of working. It's perfect. So you don't need to change everything in one go.
Okay, thank you very much. And David, your thoughts?
Yeah, I was picking up on Farah's thought there because one thing that sort of triggered in my head was, a good organizational trait in the past is very clear decision making and a lot of process around that decision making. Whereas in agile, we have to have a more distributed decision making, and that can be very tough and challenging to implement when the organization had a very top down decision making. And now we need to try have a much more distributed, participative decision making. I think that can be very challenging for an organization as they move to agile.
Absolutely. Thank you so much indeed, panel. What a brilliant question, Diane. I know that you always challenge us. You always challenge us, Diane, with really well-constructed questions. So thank you so much for that. It shed light into an area which I think is pretty common for everybody. How do you maintain that good governance, during that transition? That was a really good point that was being made there, together with also the concept that agility can bring you benefits, or at least the opportunity to begin realizing those benefits much earlier, than perhaps it might accrue otherwise. So really, really great answers. Thank you very much indeed, panel. We've got a very strong audience today on both LinkedIn and YouTube. So we're going to jump ahead and take our next question, please, Charlotte.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Maria. Maria asks, how can I get people energized about the opportunity that changes will bring?
All right. So, Sam, start us off, and then we'll hear from David.
Yeah, getting people energized is one of the greatest joys about change management. As in, if you have a change where you're genuinely excited about what you're delivering as well, it can often resonate with people. But if you have a change, think of it like this. I like to use the change formula because I think it's a really strong tool for you to look at what's currently going wrong and what is your solution bringing to that result, and then how easy is it to implement within the organization. And when you realize those three questions and you can answer them very securely, you'll start to have natural energy from your middle managers who are going to be the ones to echo those changes out across the organization. So to get people energized, just think very strategically about how your change is going to benefit everyone.
Thanks so much, David.
I'm going to sound like a broken record because I'm going to say the same thing again. In order to get people energized about the opportunities, I think they need to be involved in designing the change themselves. They need to be participants in the change. They need to have full visibility of the change. And I think that's what will energize people. If I and my team have designed some of the change and have inputted into the change, I think I'm automatically going to be that much more energized. If the change is being imposed upon me, I'm naturally going to be pushed back on it more. So I think it's really important to get people involved in the designing of the change themselves and understanding what the implications of that are.
Excellent. Thank you very much indeed. Patrick?
So building on the other two, eventually, you want your leadership team to help provide a clear shared vision for why the change is beneficial from an organizational perspective and to each of the relevant stakeholders in question. And then you want to be clear about invitation. How do I engage individuals? How can you participate? And how can we empower them to be part of both building the change capabilities and making sure that we engage other stakeholders to make this, to cement this in the organization. So, to the point that Farah has been making about communications highways, part of this is making sure that this communication is two-way, that we are engaging people and creating shared opportunities and visions, but that we're also creating open, flexible feedback loops so that people can actively participate in helping to make the change theirs.
Thank you so much, Farah.
I would summarize it in 2 words. I would say make it personal and give them more ownership. And by ownership and make it personal, I mean, for example, go and observe how they currently work. They will feel like you're really interested in what they are doing, what will change, what would be the impact on their usual day, I mean. So giving them this opportunity to talk, to give you some feedback, whether it is via observation or via interviews or focus group or whatsoever, would be a good way to energize them and also to make them feel that it's personal, that it's for them, and that you're interested in what they have in mind, not just imposing something to them and something that might be completely different from what they are used to.
Thank you. Stephen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I wanted to share a technique on this one. I agree with the other panelists so far. The technique is called open space. I've applied it once for a team, and we invited 56 people in one room for a full day. I forgot how many improvements that they got out and things that they thought and they were convinced that would help them and that they could do without additional mandate. And I think that's interesting because they volunteer, they choose the design as mentioned, and they don't need additional mandate. So you just have to give a go. And why wouldn't they be enthusiastic and energized about it? And it was awesome.
Absolutely. Thank you so much indeed. Thank you very much indeed, panel. And Maria, what a brilliant question. How to get that energy across and into folks and give them that sense of, that sense of hope and purpose and moving forward together. So really, really brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Charlotte, if we can, we'll take our next question.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a live question that's just come in from Natasha. Natasha asks, can an agile culture evolve and succeed without the involvement of HR?
Stephen, start us off on this one, please.
Can it? Probably. I assume it can. In all my experiences, though, HR was one of my key partners. Because they typically, if they are good human resource people anyway, they know the structure, they know the organization, they know how people communicate, collaborate, etc. So for me, it's a key player. Can it? Yes, but I doubt.
Thank you very much, Patrick.
I love that phrase. Can it? Yes, but I doubt it. Because at the end of the day, people will do what you measure. And human resources has a lot to do with how people are measured and how people assess and how managers assess their own performance. If we don't engage in agile approaches to think about the metrics we use for people's performance, then people's behaviors will inherently not want to embrace new agile approaches.
Thank you. Farah?
Well, when I hear HR, usually the first thing that comes into my mind is competencies. When speaking about agile transformation or moving to an agile way of working whatsoever, the first thing that would need to be tackled by the team is to figure out and to assess whether the team has the appropriate competencies, to figure out what needs to be done, what processes need to be put on place, who will take this responsibility, this role, etc. So having the HR as a key player into that transformation would be key, because that might help the team know what training paths to follow, and also how to do it, because they have this competency and they have this knowledge of the skills, I would say, topic.
Thank you. And Sam?
Yeah, I completely agree with all the other panelists and what they've said, but I would just question why. Why would you even want to try and create an agile environment without including HR? It's such an important function within the business, and it has such high levels of trust. And trust is such a key thing when trying to involve anything that's new. And an agile environment is difficult for people to get the concept around, especially if people working in a very traditional waterfall style fashion before. So involving HR, could you do it? As Stephen said, probably. Would you want to do it even? Probably not.
Absolutely. Thank you very much indeed, panel. You know, one of the things that I think the HR community has been suffering from is a little echo of the IT community's past. In the past, the IT community in a business were kind of seen as somehow slightly separate to the business, and people talked about the business as somehow in the third person as being slightly different from IT and so on. And then over time, it's become completely clear that everybody is in the business. There's nobody who's not in the business, all right? So I would say some of this is a little echo of the past a wee bit, all right? Thinking about HR and finance and IT and so on as somehow a little bit removed from the business is possibly a little old-fashioned, and start to consider the talent that you have in the teams. Doesn't matter what function they're in, okay, they're going to bring a tremendous value to your change initiatives. And particularly, I would argue, people who understand how people work and how people think and how people behave are fantastic advocates for bringing about meaningful and long-term cultural shift in an organization to get you to where you need to be. So definitely engage with your HR colleagues. They are there and they're a brilliant resource to work with. Certainly all of the ones that I've worked with have been absolutely on that side of the equation. So very good. Thank you very much indeed. Lovely question, Natasha. Thank you for putting it to the panel. Let's move on if we can. Now, if you've got a question out there and you want to submit it, please jump in online. I can see many of you are already doing that. And type your question in and we'll pick it up. Charlotte, next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a live question. Question is from Ali. How can we orient the organizational conflicts, making synergy to increase total dynamic, agility-centric, and value-creative productivity? No complex words in there at all.
That's quite all right. That's quite all right. I think we understand it. I think we kind of get it. All right. And I think you're going to be awarded one of the points, Ali, for a truly comprehensive question. Patrick, start us off, and then we're going to hear from David.
That is a challenging question, Ali. I would begin by suggesting that the importance of shared visions is critical here. That if organizations perceive work to be executing within their silo, as opposed to engaging and driving certain business outcomes, that's a substantial organizational challenge that needs to be addressed, refocusing people on specific sets of strategic goals and how the teams eventually have to work collaboratively to achieve. So again, we go back to the previous conversation about HR and metrics. If the metrics that the organization uses are silo driven, then you get silo behavior. If the metrics that the organization uses are cross-functional, then that drives the cross-functional collaboration so that each of the players in turn help to achieve their own objectives as well as the organization's objectives.
Thank you so much, David.
Yeah, I mean, a very complex question, and I'm just going to chip off a piece of it, which is the organizational conflicts. I think in Agile, one of the ways that we need to chip away at organizational conflicts is to ensure that we have as much transparency as possible. So each of the silos, if they are silos there at the moment, understand what they need to get, what they need to drive for, and that we can actually have transparency across the different areas to break down those silos. I think that's the only way to kind of get a full organizational understanding and a synergy around the organization.
So much. I think one thing that we should be considering is the opportunities to be creative. All right, and in thinking about that, one of the challenges that we have is ensuring that our organizations create space and time in which people can be creative. Now, what do I really mean by that? You can't schedule creativity. You can't say between 9:10 and 11 on a Thursday, we're all going to be creative. Or it doesn't really happen like that. Creativity is going to come out of the headspace and the time space and the degree of freedom that you afford your colleagues in an organization. Okay, so please don't overly pack the space with stuff. All right, give people a little bit of freedom of movement. You'll be amazed at what they're able to create together, individually and in their teams and cross-functionally, if you give them that little bit of wiggle room in which to do it. Farah, your thoughts on this, and then we'll hear from Stephen.
Yeah, speaking about leaving people some freedom, I would say give or let some room for failure. Because if they feel like they tried something and they're blamed for it and there are a lot of things behind it, they will not be creative and they will not feel like they are safe into that environment. So that's my first thought. Second thought is usually we say that for new changes, for big transformation and get a new approach, managers and leaders need to lead by example. So in this situation as well, if you have any C-suite, let's say people or managers that are not in that agility or agility-centric environment or transformation, get them to test something and to show what they are experiencing, what they are figuring out, what they create, what comes from their mind, so that people get more, let's say, engaged into that and involved, trying to make the same thing as the managers or as the C-suite. So leading by example and leaving some room for failure.
Thank you very much. And Stephen?
Yeah, I wanted to continue on what David was mentioning. I've seen indeed a lot of organizations with different silos, and then they do have conflict. The thing is, if there is one organizational North Star, why would one department move in another direction? It's not logical. So by giving that one single North Star for the entire company and all departments have to work towards it, I think that really brings transparency and remove a lot of conflict there.
Okay, excellent advice. Thank you so much. And a great question, Ali. You really got us thinking and learning from each other as well, which is really what Level Up is all about. All right, twice a week we come together to be able to learn from each other, share our ideas, share our experiences as well. And if you're joining us on social media today, you're most welcome, by the way, to look us up on apmginternational.com. Just go to events, and then you'll find all the Level Up shows, and you can find a little link and click on the little link, and then you will be taken over to the LinkedIn profile of our panelists, where you can invite them, to add you as a connection. That's what we're here for, really, to help you build out your careers. Okay, now, please don't try and sell us things. We don't really like that. But we do really like hearing from fellow professionals wherever you are in the world. So you're most welcome to connect with us. All right, very good. So on that note, thank you very much indeed. Let's move on and we'll take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got another live question from Sarah. Following on from Natasha's question, what happens if HR are not interested in being part of an agile world?
Okay, Stephen, start us off on this one.
In an agile, everybody knows we are talking about cross-functional self-managing teams. So their teams manage it. I've had the best experience ever for a team who did the engagement of new team members themselves. It was awesome. HR did not need to be involved at any way. The policy was clear, the process was clear, the team did it themselves. Thank you, HR.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. Sam and then Patrick.
Yeah, I'm going to echo a little bit of what Stephen just said, is that if they don't want to be part of that agile world, then why are you forcing something onto them? As in, you have to want to change, as in change is always going to be about wanting to see that transition. So if you're fully rejecting it, as long as it's an informed rejection of agile, then you're doing the right thing. And agile can still operate without HR. We've discussed that already. It can, but it shouldn't.
Okay, thank you, Patrick, and then David.
So one thing to consider is that agility may not simply be a focus area for some IT or services division, but ultimately should be being driven by the needs of board directors, C-level people, be able to deal with volatility and uncertainty. And so agility is not about a bunch of software development techniques. Agility is about bringing a mindset of learning and adaptation. And it's an organizational goal that really has human resources at the center of it. Because at the end of the day, it's not really about software or hardware or even particular business processes. It's about people and stakeholders. And so it's very important that HR understands what we mean when we talk about embracing agility. It's creating team learning, team adaptation, and it's not limited in any way to anything in IT.
Thank you very much, Patrick. David?
Yeah, just to back up Patrick's point there, is that agile is about people, and it's about creating a human-centric organization. So for me, that's what HR is about as well. So I find it kind of hard if they're not interested in being part of the agile world. I think they're behind the curve, HR, if they're not interested in the agile world. Of course, in some organizations, there might be a team in their own little silo doing a little bit of agile. But I'm hoping that the organization is thinking bigger than that, and HR are part of that bigger thinking picture, which is actually saying, agile and HR are all about people.
Absolutely right. And it's a really good question. And I guess some of this might be, you might want to spend a moment just trying to dig underneath the surface a little bit there, Sarah, and try and establish the kind of the why or the reasoning behind it. Because, to the panel's point, we're really talking about a culture of agility, agile change in an organization, rather than a dogmatic, method for developing software. So this is a much broader kind of conversation. And I really do think that the true philosophy, around agile, the agile manifesto, really thinking, really kind of just sharing that a little bit can be a marvelous moment, all right, for people as they begin to get their heads around it. It's quite possible that there's been a little bit of misunderstanding as to, what agile really is. And it may have been used in one context and perhaps not used in an organizational context too much previously. But anyway, look, fantastic question, Sarah. This is one of the very real life things that, that we do face as we go through our careers. How do you bring people on board? How do you actually start to develop that one team, one approach, one vision, mission, and purpose type model? Very good. Thank you so much. Let's move on and we'll take our next question, please, Charlotte.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a question from Inaya. How do agile and change management interact?
Okay, frequently, often, and decisively, I would say. Stephen, start us off, and then we'll hear from Patrick.
There's another word, continuously, of course. To me, change management is a skill. Any team is considered to be cross-functional, meaning they need all the skills that they need to achieve their purpose. So I would expect the change management skill to be part of any agile team. So it's continuous interaction within the team members themselves, with their stakeholders, with their managers, with other teams, all the time, as a skill.
Thank you so much, Patrick, and then Farah.
One particular place where change management teams have expertise that will really help the agile teams is in helping them to think about building fast feedback loops. How do we create the engagement models with individual stakeholders? How do we get feedback in a timely enough way to learn? And how does the organization leverage that information to deliver better solutions. So, I think about change management as a little bit of an organizational view of what agility is really about. How do we as people learn to adapt in ways that help us serve our customers more effectively, and how do we learn so that we can work collaboratively together to problem solve?
Thank you. And Farah?
So I'd say that a continuous interaction that we have between the two concepts, agility and change management. It does not mean that you need a specific change manager or a team that is in charge of change management. It's much more, I see it much more as a skill and something that needs to be embedded and into the agile teams, because they are dealing with changes every day that will affect people, that will affect users. So if they are not prepared to manage this thing in each one of their sprints, each one of their iteration, it will be a loss of time. It will be hard for the users. So whether they have someone that is dedicated to this task or they are learning by themselves, they are both, let's say, a part of the same concept. Agility means having, let's say, or living into a more fast-paced environment and delivering more and more, having something that you can test and that you can figure out in terms of feedback from your customers. But at the same time, if you cannot make the change smooth for the users, they will reject it, and all what you are doing into your iteration would be lost. So I see it as two faces from the same concept. Change management is the basis, and then agility is the process that leads you to provide something that can be absorbed by your customer and by your users.
Thank you, Farah. David, and then Sam.
I think it's important to understand and to realize it's not the new solution or the new product that delivers value. It's the change that the new product or the new system enables. That's what gives us real value. So having a new IT system or a new HR system, there's no point in having one unless there's a change in our processes, our behaviors, or our way of working. So agile is a rapid way to do change, to implement a new solution. And we need to follow that with rapid changes in behaviors, approaches, and processes. So they're completely intertwined.
Thank you so much. And final thoughts, Sam?
Yeah, for me, agile and change management, they could be twins, honestly. Like, as in they interlink together so crucially, because when we think about agile being that incremental and iterative development and fast paced and taking people from one step to another, change management teaches us that we need to take people from their current state to their end state. But when that change is happening constantly throughout the process, you're doing that back and forth over and over and over again, and that can cause some type of fatigue as well, which we've touched on already in the previous question. So change management is, I would say, almost crucial, even more so crucial in agile environments, just because that change is happening over and over and over again before you get to that end result or that end goal. And most of the time, you don't ever get to an end goal because it is in constant development. So I'd say it interacts very, very well.
Thank you very much indeed. And Inaya, what a brilliantly insightful question to put to the panel. And that's what we love about this. Every Monday and every Friday, we get real questions from real people, and we try and answer them in real time for everybody. So on that note, Charlotte, we'll have to hurry a little, I think. Let's see if we can fit 2 more questions in panel. So let's go ahead and take the next question.
Thanks, Nick. The next question is from Stephen. What is agile change? What is different with traditional change?
Okay, so what is agile change? David, why don't you start us off?
It's just the pace. Traditional change was generally centrally built, centrally deployed. Agile change, like agile, is more distributed with the teams, and it's much more fast-paced. That's the difference, and it creates its own challenges.
Thank you so much. Stephen, your thoughts?
Yeah, I align with that. To me, the traditional change was more big bang, where agile change would be step by step. I'm coaching a person right now, and they've done a sprint planning session. and we've created a routine together for sprint planning. And the last step of the routine is, what will we do next time different and better? And like that, they have already an improvement step for next time. It's really small, but in 2 weeks, they will make their improvement step. So yeah, step by step, small increments, small improvements, continuously by the team.
Okay, very good. Final thoughts, Sam?
I think for traditional changes some of the oldest theory is probably Lewin's theory, where we talk about we take an organization, we unfreeze, we change, and then we refreeze. That's your as traditional as change management as you can really get. But again, in Agile, it's all about there is no refreeze. We're constantly changing. We're in that changing environment where things are going and coming back and forth between that process. So it's not a linear process anymore. It's more going in a cycle. And that's the biggest difference between Agile change and traditional change.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And it's a really good question to kind of look at this and contrast and start us all kind of thinking, all right, about, what is that pace of change and how do we bring people with us and how do we sustain that kind of pace on the change transformation journey? So really, really good question. Thank you so much. Charlotte, let's take our next question, please.
Thanks, Nick. We've got a live question come in, and it's from Christine. Christine asks, she says, Farah, great answer. Are you saying that agility includes a bit of change management?
Okay, well, let's give Farah a moment just to kind of think about that. I think possibly we've got, it's a great point, Christine. Sorry, we probably answered another question in the time that it's taken us to get to this point. But nonetheless, Farah, start off. What would you see as that blend, if you like? Is it a recipe for success to bring these two things together?
I would say yes, and I can give an example. As a former product owner on a digital platform, I had, I would say, these two hats at the same time. At the same time, a product owner and at the same time, a change manager. Why? Because in my job, what I had to do was to figure out what would be the impact from user perspective of all what we were going to deploy to release, whether it's a new way of creating an account, a new way of designing a document or whatsoever. So I put myself into the shoes of the user and I try to figure out what would be the best thing, make it smooth to them. What would the change bring them? How would I present it to them? Would I go through trainings? Would I go through presentation, make some documentation or whatsoever? So I feel like the change management approach and knowing it, having this skill is a plus when you're working in an agile environment, because you can put yourself into the shoes of the people that you're working to give and to deliver value to. And this is something that has tremendous impact on the value that you can create and the involvement in engagement of your customers and clients.
Thank you very much indeed. Stephen and then Patrick.
Yeah, to me, agile is in itself a change approach. It's all about making things transparent, inspect the stuff, and do something with it. So, as Farah mentioned, as product owner, you listen to your market, to your users. You implement something with your team, you get feedback on it, you do something with it, and you iterate. So it's all about change.
So much. And Patrick, final thoughts?
So agility and change management come together in centering your customers. What are they trying to get? How is what we're building enabling them to do something better, faster, more cost effective? And so I think the biggest value proposition here is just shifting focus from what we do to what they get as a result.
Thank you very much indeed. Well, wow, what a fantastic audience our producers have been today, really on top of it and putting some amazing questions to the panel. The hour is kind of really racing past. So we're going to kind of pause there a little bit and just draw breath for a moment on a Friday afternoon here in the UK ahead of the weekend. And so we're going to walk around the panel now and hear some closing remarks from our esteemed panelists. So Farah, if I may, I'm going to come to you first and then Patrick. So Farah, go ahead.
Thanks, Nick. First of all, thanks a lot for the panel, great thoughts, and for the viewers also for the amazing and challenging questions. My final word would be say that the pace and the nature of Agile means that, well, change management and transformation, what's all behind it must change at some point and be flexible. The team needs to have like this way of working, way of thinking that enables failures, that enables test and learn, and enables to try to figure out what's the best that comes from each one of the departments, each one of the skills and competencies of the company.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Farah. Patrick, and then Sam.
So everyone, thank you again for being part of the program today. I always am awed by the quality of the panelists and the quality of the questions we get from the viewers. Remember that organizational change and agility are both grounded in people, that our goal is to understand the nature of how people perform work, deliver results, and how do we can streamline that and get better quality feedback on how we can serve them more efficiently and more effectively. So when we consider folding organizational change into an agility approach, it just puts people in the center where they belong.
Okay, thank you very much indeed. That's really great. Sam, and then David.
Yeah, same for me. It's been a great pleasure to be on board with all the panelists. Yeah, I've learned personally a lot just from all their answers as well. So thank you to each of you, and thank you to everyone who submitted questions live too. It's been great fun. I think my final thoughts kind of echo what Patrick has just said about the fact that change is all about being people-centric, and the fact that change is constant can often get to a point where people experience that fatigue. And I think that the more and more that we are just aware of what's kind of going on and the fact that people are going through changes constantly, and we take care of them, the rest of the problems that are surrounding maybe product or different processes will take care of themselves. So we take care of people first.
Thank you very much indeed. David, and then Stephen.
Look, thanks very much, guys. Super panel, and some very challenging questions that made us think on the fly, which is great. I think agile change is about facilitating change and facilitating the change discussion. And I think we need to make sure we're facilitating everybody's involvement in the change in order to remove or lessen the likelihood of fatigue or have less silos around there. So I think it's about facilitating the change, not necessarily designing the change from scratch. It's about facilitating the change processes.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, David. Really good advice. Stephen, and then Charlotte.
Yeah, thanks for having me on the panel. It's a quite interesting and useful experience also for me. What I feel is important is that it's all about transparency, also in agile change. So make very clear as an organization, why on earth do you want to go through that agile change? And then you might have people on your road, on your train with you, and it will run. I think we could go on hours if I hear all these things and still see questions in the chat. So let's continue the conversation then.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Stephen. And Charlotte, your closing remarks on today's show.
Thanks, Nick. A big shout out to our expert panelists. Thank you so much for your knowledge, contribution, expertise. Thank you so much to the audience that have asked the live questions. One thing I will say on Agile and Change is that it's not one industry or one sector focus. It is around you all the time. You know, please be agile and please look at change and how to improve what you do and how you do it. Change is just an aspect of life.
Thank you so much indeed. Thank you. And on that bombshell, I want to say on behalf of everybody on the panel, a brilliant thank you to our producers online who have been submitting all of the questions. Also to the social team. There's a big team actually involved in doing all of this. And today, Shanice has been kept very busy. So she needs to go for a lie down now, I think, and in a slightly dark room. Just relax for a few moments or another. Meanwhile, though, everybody, we're going to look forward and think a little bit of where you go next. So look, on our website, you can, of course, search for answers to more than 1,000 questions that have been put to the panels over the last 81 episodes of Level Up, and also on our Midday Mentors programs and on our podcasts and so on. We can connect you with more than 150 experts now from around the world. And don't forget as well that you can listen to the audio versions of every show on your preferred podcast platform. Now, looking forward to on Monday, the 1st of August, it's August already, everybody, we're going to be looking at how to engage stakeholders from the smallest micro projects through to those large infrastructure programs. So do tune in for that. That's at 8 a.m. UK summertime, followed by figuring out how to build winning business cases. Well, that's at the same time, 2 p.m. UK time on Friday the 5th. Subscribe to the show and we'll send you a personal summary of what's coming up and how you too can join us here on the panel and, of course, level up your career with APMG. So thanks very much. Thanks very much, everybody. Yeah, we'll see you next time. Thank you. Enjoy the weekend.